As of today, Baja California has moved to yellow regarding COVID, which is good. And to be able to hold the meeting in the pavilion, we had to get special permission. So we've got some distance and seating and etc. Last week, we held the 15th annual charity golf tournament on Saturday. It was a big success. We raised $15,000 for the Universal Golf Foundation, whose purpose is scholarships for children in San Felipe. I want to thank all the sponsors, the players, volunteers, and our owners for the support of the Universal Golf Foundation. And a big thank you goes out to Jesus Velarde, and a congratulations. His wife had a new baby boy 2 days ago. Girl, Jesus great. So he, with his crew, got the golf course in very good condition, and it's really looking the best it's looked in some years. We were also able to get 20 of the carts completely rebuilt, thanks to the tireless effort of Scott Harlan, who's been working on that project for me for the past 3 months. Due to the cost of rebuilding the carts, which basically came from the developer, from me, we have raised the cart fee on January 1, going from $10 to $15 a person to offset some of that expense. And also the owners of private carts contracted to have a building built on the side of the building here for private cart storage, and the construction was paid for by those owners, and the land's owned by the company. So starting in January, the annual cart trail fee will be increased a bit to provide for the passenger in the cart, so there's not additional fees that they'll pay. They're going to pay it in their annual trail, their trail fee. So, as you can imagine, the company has struggled through the COVID pandemic. Of course, we had to pay everybody over the age of 60 or any women that had pregnancies or any other kind of conditions, health conditions, were instructed not to come to work through the pandemic period, but we still had to pay full payroll, full benefits, full Social Security. And unlike the United States, there was no relief for any business owner in Mexico. So that was pretty difficult. But during this past year, we've also seen a lot of people making moves to Mexico and San Felipe for second homes or permanently. At the ranch, we processed over 50 sales, and we've had very little finished product left in El Dorado for sale. We started 13 new homes so far this year. We've built 4 Ramadas, and they've got the TRC has 60 additional construction projects going on. So even though we've been kind of through this pandemic period, there has been quite a bit of movement in the construction area, which is positive. Once the border opens, we'll begin marketing El Dorado again. We've already kind of started with some social media marketing, and I believe that we'll see more people from the U.S. moving into Mexico and here in San Felipe. Some owners have asked about the construction that's going on just north of Las Medanas North. This is a piece of developer land that I sold as a commercial property. It's not a residential lot. The buyer's building a large home on the subdivision, not in the subdivision, in the private commercial area, which is following the guidelines that we laid out for him. The home's going to have 8 bedrooms and 8 bathrooms and a common kitchen and a common living area. It'll be used for individuals that are here for renting the property for a minimum of 3 months. There'll also be a pool and patio in that home. And there was a need for temporary housing for people who've lost spouses and people that no longer want to live alone in their home, and also for some temporary workers that are assigned projects here in the area. We've got an engineer from the wind farm program going on in the mountains, and we've had another engineer, a couple of engineers from the mining company. So those types of people that need housing for a period of time, that's the purpose of this. And also, it's kind of the first step into an assisted living program. I mean, we have a need of that in the future, we know, and so that was originally the primary purpose of this. This is not a vacation rental house or a vacation rental project. It's the property is not part of the HOA, but it will be charged some annual fees, and those fees will be paid to the HOA for things like coverage of road service and security, trash service, etc. The ranch, as I mentioned, is still struggling financially. We're still working with some potential investors who want to close on our deal. We're also working on interim financing until one of these deals is closed. Doreen and I are dedicated to getting the ranch back up and fiscally sound. I know it's been a long time in coming, but we have faith that it will be accomplished. I want to remind the owners that are still under a lease with Eldorado that the lease expired last year. Due to COVID, we extended it for a year. These owners are people that decided not to privatize when we offered privatization, but now the lease is up, and the option to do something is $4,000, which is basically close to the same number that was originally paid to privatize your lot. And the company is willing to write a finance program for that. So I would suggest that anybody that's in that category contact our sales office, the administrative people in the sales office, Billy Burns, Brooke Peterson's in there now, and Myra. So the lease expires on November 1, so I would suggest you do it quickly. I know that for the 2022 budget that there are increases. There's a 10% increase for EDR, a 4% increase in La Ventana. There's no increase in Las Villas. One thing I would like to mention is we need to remember that Eldorado is really the only full-service resort in all of San Felipe, with heated pool and spa, tennis and pickleball facilities, bi-weekly movies, full moon mixers, horseshoes, bocce ball, and etc. You know, all of these provided through our full service activities department. The annual cost of these services is over $500,000, and I know that you guys know that the activities department does a great job providing activities all year long. And of course, the increase is really primarily brought on by an increase in cost. I mean, you guys know what's going on with gasoline prices and propane gas and everything else, utility expenses. So, and I should remind you, we're a commercial operation, and in all of our buildings, except your residential lots and residential, you pay CFE, a residential rate, which is half the rate of commercial rate. So our rates are pretty high, our monthly bills. I want to thank the supervisory committee led by President Dick Peterson, the EDR committee, Ed Jones and Steve Joseph, that are here, the La Ventana Del Mar committee, Denise Levin and Hans Wolschu, and our Lost Villas committee members, Martha Rizak and Gary Lambert. This group works tirelessly formally meets every month to make sure that the HOA is operating efficiently and on budget and in the best interest of the owners. I also want to thank the HOA, the staff led by Roberto Isla, the EDR developer staff led by Jesus, and of course my wife for all of her administrative assistance and support. And just a final comment that next week is Shrimp Festival weekend, November 5th and 6th. It's going to be held in the baseball field this year. So just so you know, remember that. And with that, I'll open it up for questions. And please come to a microphone for your questions.
Hello. Good morning, Pat. Jesus, ¿cómo están? Bien. I brought this question. We had a town meeting, and I really didn't get the correct answer. And regarding the municipality of San Felipe, that passed, and I brought it up, like I mentioned the last we had our town meeting. What advantages is the ranch going to have since we're all taxpayers here and all the money used to go to Mexicali? If I'm informed correctly, now it's going to stay here in San Felipe. What advantages do we have here at the ranch as far as changes for us? Because everything, the money's staying here now.
So, Tony, I'll let Jesus comment about this too, because he probably have a little more insight into the process than I do. But my understanding is that it will take at least 2 years of study before this happens. They have created a committee. There are a lot of people that we don't know that are on that committee. I'm not very impressed with the committee personally. I did read the only study that they could provide us to show us that they had sustainability for a municipality. And I didn't think it was very well done. And I still challenge the group to show us that they can become sustainable as a municipality. The study that I read said that they'll take at least 300 employees, more employees. They'll need offices, computers, buildings, automobiles, equipment, a lot of support, and they have to create all of the municipal, infrastructure, which includes urban planning, police, fire departments, so when you take the total taxes that we pay as a company and all of you pay, and the rest of the town pays, according to the last municipal president, Lupita Mora, she commented to me in a meeting in her office, and I think Jesus was there, she doesn't believe it's viable either. Okay, but we now have a new municipal president, Norma Bustamante, who we met with last week in her office, and they're going to go ahead and do the study, and we'll just see, Tony. I'm not sure that I think the worst thing that would happen with us would be that we get designated municipality and we fail financially, because we can't support all of that infrastructure. And so my thing with them is, I would prefer to let San Felipe, ride it out for another couple of years and see if we can't, if the economy turns around, we get some new investments going on in town. I've been hopeful that they would get sports fishing for Tatuaba here, because I think that would bring a lot of sports fishermen into the town. We would need more hotel rooms. Those people would be here for an average of 4 nights for a fishing trip. But we need to do things to increase the financial viability of the town and the tax base. 37% according to the study, 37% of the inhabitants in San Felipe have no job. pay no taxes. And so I just don't see where the finances come from to see it happen. I'll let Jesus make a comment.
Okay, thank you, but let me complement a little bit what Pat says. First of all, the Congress approved, on March, the municipalization of San Felipe. This is law. This is by law now. Then after that, they create, a Consejo Municipal, that basically is the board, But now José Luis Dagnino is the president. Then José Luis Dagnino and the Congress, the actual Congress, basically led by Manuel Molina, who is the congressist, and he's the president of the Congress in Baja California. They are working, in order to put all together, all the platform that they need to start, separate, the Ensenada and Mexicali, and just start working with the municipio de San Felipe on the first day of the next year. That means January 1st. But for that, they need to have the approval from the Congress of the law that they call the Ley de Ingresos y Egresos. But that's the base to collect the taxes, contribution, duties, whatever, that we need to pay to the municipio. We don't know yet because this law is not approved yet. But they have at the end of December to approve it. If they approve it, then the next year we will pay the taxes for San Felipe and Mexico. But that's one thing. The other thing, is if that happened, all the valores catastrales, all the values of the property, based on the number that we use to pay the property taxes, are not going to change. It will be the same, according with the Mexicali people, that we talk to. Then they are going to use the same valores from Ensenada and the same valores from Mexicali. They are going to have the catastro here in San Felipe, and that's the base to try to collect the property taxes. Then there's not going to be, a huge change for us. If that happens, if they get their approval. Okay? The other thing, and that's the last part, is that they expect to get money from the federal government as a municipio de San Felipe. That's why they are pushing that way. No, even there is not the time. No, even as Pat says, the feasibility study basically is negative. But they are betting, that they are going to have money from the federal, from Andrés Manuel López Obrador, our president. That's why.
Also, Pat, I got one more question regarding, it's always been an issue with me because I live on the mountainside, and it's always been my thing about Saltillo Road. I brought it up to Roberto at the town meeting, and he said, I don't know if he gave me the correct answer or not, but anyway, he brought up the thing about Saltillo Road. Is it maintained by the HOA or is it maintained by the developer? Because that road, it gets tore up terrible. They just finished it, but I would highly say that within the next 2 weeks, it's going to be tore up again. And like I said, there should be a maintenance thing at least once a month to maintain that road. It gets tore up, and it's bad, and we're paying to have it maintained. And let me finish this off, Pat. I've been living here for 16 years. Please don't let that ink dry in the pen. That way you can sign, investors can sign something and get this thing rolling, man. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. The Saltito Road is maintained by the HOA, and the new road we built to get the main traffic off of the road running through the middle of our communities. The state actually finished, when we built the road, the state accepted that to be the new Saltito Road, and as you guys know, they paved part of it because it runs back to the Valle Chico area. So, okay, other questions, please? Yes, Ron. Thank you, Tony. And I'm not going to let the ink dry, Tony.
hear a little bit about the marketing plan. You say you're going to open it up and start marketing it again. And specifically, I ask because we all know the failures of the previous marketing were over-promising and under-delivering. And, you know, a big part of the marketing then when we came down was based on making money, you know, that this was a great investment. And I'd like to hear that that's not going to be the principal motivation this time. And I'd like to know who's doing the marketing, how it's going to be done, and what the primary target will be for new customers. So I'd like you to answer that first before I ask the second question.
So Ross, thank you for the question. We're going to do the marketing internally. I mean, I used to do the marketing before we hired RMAC, and we didn't have the same volume of sales, but we never talked about investment for people. We basically wanted people who were interested in second homes and retirement homes, and so we'll go back to that. We started, of course, with this pandemic stuff, you know, buses, 4-hour, 5-hour, 6-hour bus trips are a little bit out of the question. Airplane rides for 30 minutes, tolerable, doable, and we actually have a company kind of lined up to do that with. The target market is going to be, you know, baby boomers are all 10, 12 years older than when the recession hit, and through the hard times we've had, people trying to figure out if they have to keep working and make more money before they can actually retire. Well, those people now, because we're all that much older, really are in a position where they have to make a decision. The housing prices in the United States have never been higher than they are right now. I talked to a gentleman just yesterday, Craig Bates, who called me to tell me he just sold his house in California for $940,000. That he was here. Craig Bates is his name. He was here a couple of months ago. He told me he definitely was going to live at El Dorado. He is a cash buyer. He told me to please let the sales department know that he needs a long-term rental for 3 to 6 months at least before they find the house they really want or they decide to build. And so I think we have a tremendous pent-up market. I mean, being as close to the border as we are in a beach town for 30% of the price of what it costs to live in the United States, and with the highest price of real estate we've ever had in the United States, for people to sell, bail out now, put most of that money in the bank, replace for $250,000 what they have up there for $900,000, which will be equally as nice, and living in a beach town that's very affordable, I think it's a tremendous market. I think we all, now that people are all working in their homes and out of these commercial buildings, then I think there's another tremendous market with the people that are still at work. Our internet services continue to get a little better here, and with high-speed internet, they can work anywhere. And so I think we got a tremendous market there to go after, and people that are just fed up of, look at what they've done to the cities on the west coast of the United States, destroyed them. I mean, who wants to live in that stuff? I mean, I have a hard time even thinking about building another home in the United States. And I have 8 kids and 8 grandkids. And so I think we've got a great market potential, and as soon as we get the investor deal closed, we will relaunch and get a bunch of public relations stories out there about a relaunch, second wind for El Dorado Ranch, start with social media. We will probably put a whole social media team in place here. It's this social media that we did start with Facebook has really been pretty good. We've already created about a dozen sales out of that over the last couple of months. So I think, you know, we just need to get shovels in the ground again. We will not be talking about investment opportunities, believe me.
That's all very good to hear, and I must say that the new website that you have up is good. There's some things I'd recommend, but you can do that privately sometime, but it's obvious that you're making those kind of moves. My second question might be a little more difficult to answer, and that's concerning the hunt for the investors. So it's really kind of two-sided. One would be if we're still working with the one or two that you've been working with for the past 3 and 4 years now. The other being if you're still looking for new investors. And I ask that in that we all know what it means to do the exact same thing, the exact same way over and over and expect a different result. And it would seem like that's what's been happening for 12 years. So we'd kind of like to know how you go about doing it. I mean, are you as an individual person going out and making pitches, or is there a good real estate investment company, or is there a team of people that make the presentations, a team of lawyers that go over the paperwork with you and so forth? I mean, we only get to hear from you. So who or how many are doing this thing, and what changes have you made or do you intend on making so that you're not doing the same thing over and over and sadly getting the same result?
So the couple of investors that we've had where we've had promissory notes in an account, an escrow account, those two people have kind of are by the wayside. Okay, and we did spend a couple years with them. Unfortunately, they could never get to the closing table. There wasn't any hassle about price or anything else. They told us they had available funds or funds that would be available to them. We had closing dates established. They could never raise the money and get to the closing table. We extended the closing dates a couple of times. They just never got there. We hired a person that was an investment banking guy from one of the big investment banking firms. We spent a year with that guy. Supposedly he had a lot of money contacts of Asian money, private wealth money, etc. We spent a lot of time and money with that particular contact. The guy did not get the job done. Actually, Jesus and I made a trip to Singapore with him to meet some investor people, and that never panned out. The other two groups that I've actually got 3 groups, but the group that we have right now is that I would say is the most promising. Has got an established business in Mexico. They've got U.S. investors. They've been working with Citibank in New York and Manhattan, and Citibank owns Banamex here, Citibank Banamex Mexico. So they've been working with the banks and the investors, the U.S. investors, tell them that they are, really want to get this investment started. It's taken this guy a lot of time to make sure that all these funds that will be coming into him are clean money, and he's also had to go through the Treasury Department of Mexico City to get that amount of money deposited into Mexico City. It all has to be disclosed and approved. There are 3 different agencies. He's got letters from 2 of those agencies. The third one he's waiting on, and we're told that he should have it done very soon. We actually expect some more information out of him by tomorrow. A newer group we have, we're supposed to get they know of us. We're supposed to get an LOI from them today or tomorrow. They talked to Jesus again yesterday, and it's a big, we don't know, I don't have the full name of the group yet. It's a family trust fund.
Yeah, the name of this is a Trusted T9 Group.
So they're basically out of England. They have Mexican representation. They have a lot of money to invest, and they're looking for places. And they reviewed our prospectus report, and they want to take a look. And I think that once we sign the LOI, they're going to sign it. Then they'll put a study group down here. I definitely want to get something closed before the end of the year. To answer your question about do we have professionals out there, Ross, most of these guys want enormous upfront fees. It's ridiculous. I've probably wasted, I'm going to say, probably $400,000 in fees through more, Jesus says more than that, through these years trying to find investment guys that could bring us an investor. First of all, it's kind of a needle in the haystack. You got to find somebody that's willing to invest in Mexico. The Mexican investors are, everybody wants something on the cheap. They want to buy you like you're a broken down horse. And we don't want to, we're willing to be very reasonable. I mean, I've got over $100 million personally invested here. Okay, and for me to go out and some of other investor guys to go out that they're not here invested here in El Dorado. They're invested in a couple of other things that I bought through the years in still real estate stuff. But those people are all willing to go out for 50% of what they invested. And so if the numbers we're looking for are not unreasonable. They're very reasonable numbers. I mean, our asset base is over $200 million. Most of it has been appraised. It's actually a fair amount more than $200 million. And a lot of those appraisals were done back when I had Textron as a financial group, and they independently appraise these properties, not them personally. They hire outside appraisers to come in and do it. So, all of that substantiated. We've got a data room with over 10,000 pages in it that show the titles of all of our properties. All of them are free and clear of liens. So we feel we have the asset base and the management team and the HOA structure and everything in place for this to still get a good amount of liveliness in it and move forward. Obviously, we have a lot of property, a lot of land to be developed. So our goal is one group we're talking with, which is very involved with the guys that I had mentioned a few minutes ago that are working with the internet, with the bank and Citibank in New York, and with Banamex here. I mean, their goal is to build 10,000 homes in 10 years. And they have a exclusive on a home building system, which was designed and it's out of the United States. They've been building with it in mainland Mexico, and they can build residential and up to a 5-story commercial building. They built some hotels, office buildings, and those guys have. They also have a big marketing contract with a big Canadian association group. So I think we have the pieces in place to make this thing move forward again in a healthy way. But we stopped going to these outside people just because they've been so ineffective and so costly. And basically, the only banks are totally out of it, both Mexican and U.S. banks. They're not going to invest in these type of properties any longer for the time being. And multi-purpose residential. The big real estate, the big home building companies, Lennar, Pulte, and others, we have had some contact with those groups. But it really it's going to be a private wealth group, a hedge fund, or a very wealthy individual. Most of these guys want to make the investment, but they don't necessarily have an entire management team to put it in place. What they will put into place, I'm sure, is some financial personnel so that they can watch over their investment and see how it continues to move forward, etc. But like I say, it's kind of a needle in the haystack, and that, you know, a lot of them are not interested in investing in Mexico. A lot of them with the pandemic have just stopped everything to see how things get back to normal. So you got there's a lot of reasons. When the recession hit, I mean, you know, that I think hurt. I mean, I was one of 150 people that were with Textron Financial, and a number of those guys just went out of business. In fact, a couple of them were so devastated they committed suicide. I'm not quite there, but but anyway, it's been a challenge. But I do think we're close, and I think we're going to get there. And again, Doreen and I are totally dedicated to finish what we started. My goal, I mean, I'm 77. My goal is to be finished by the time I'm 80. And so I can spend some time with grandkids and kids, which is meaningful to me. And but I want to make sure that we get a full transition done, and that we finish what we started, and they can take it from there to another phase. But that's kind of the gist of where I am.
And it's funny you mentioned that in one of our first meetings when Marilyn and I first came down here, and we had a nice talk with you. And you had said at that time your goal was to be done with this whole thing at 70. So you're 10 years late, but you're still here. And we all appreciate that. I can say that for sure.
Thank you, Rod.
Thank you, man.
Well, Doreen asked me when I first bought here in '94. Well, we closed in '94. I first came in '93, and she said, "Well, how long do you think you'll be in this Mexico project?" I said, "Well, maybe 5 years." And so she reminds me every once in a while, "Well, you're 28 years into your 5-year plan." How are you, Philip?
Philip Van Rensburg. Really nice to hear about your marketing strategy. So just thought that we get something going to improve the number of homes we have. Obviously, the HOA numbers will improve and so forth. Just an observation, and while you were talking, I was thinking about it, that you bring people to the ranch to have a look at homes, lots. But there's a bit of a crossover between you and the HOA here, because you was trying to sell me a house right now, and in some places I would see some unrepaired damage in maintained items. And I know we don't have a lot of money in the HOA, but it would turn me off. I see something doesn't look good, and I think about what else doesn't look good behind the scenes. So just an observation, and I think it might help. If you're taking around with people to have a look at things that you don't see unrepaired damage, with the HOA to try and get some of these fixed. Fences going down, it's really small stuff, it's not really major issues. There might be a connection between yourself and the HOA to help with the sales.
Okay, thanks, Phil. No, we definitely have some deferred maintenance. I mean, I've got these villas down here that I it's even difficult for me to look at them unfinished. And so in the deals that we're trying to put together with these groups, there is money in there to address that exact issue. To finish the roads in here, to finish the landscaping, to finish the rest of these condominiums, to finish the underground infrastructure on the other side. There's money to take care of most of this deferred maintenance and get it back to a level where I don't think, we shouldn't have to fall back into this condition again. That's the goal. But the other thing is that I think is going to be a little different with our marketing plan is what I really want to do is build like 6 model homes, okay, and do a model home village, so that, because we've got about 5,000 owners that are current in dues, maybe it's a little less than that haven't built here yet. And like when we built the condos, we built a fourplex and we invited owners that hadn't built yet, even the ones that had built, to come and look at the condo project. And we sold, that whole project out in 12 weeks. Okay, we had contracts on everything in 12 weeks. So I think with the model home village, where we can, depending on the size and configuration of the lot, where we can have our architects work with people, we'll figure out what homes, models will fit on lots, and then I want to do a deal like that where we can get into production building, and we're not building one-offs on everything we do. I want to get to the point where we can turn keys over to a new owner in 4 to 5 months, not 8 months. And and the guys, one of the groups we're talking to, the groups we are talking to are all talking about something very similar to that. But the one group we are talking to that are far along in this process, they have a home building system, and they actually want to manage, they want to manufacture the panels here in San Felipe. They want to put a production plan up and manufacture here, create some jobs. And we've seen some of the stuff that they've done. I mean, they can make it look, rustic, Mediterranean, modern, or whatever. And it's all very well, it's structural stuff, and it's a proven building system. So that's kind of what we want to do with the new marketing.
And that's great. We really appreciate what you did here, because we wouldn't be here, so we're very happy about what you've done. No, I'm not really criticizing any unfinished stuff. I mean, that's what happened, and that's what we got. And what I'm talking about really is when I'm driving into, for instance, Hacienda del Sol, there's some unrepaired items, just very small things, but it catches the buyer's eye. Even the fences that are going down, or little rustic palapas built on the side of the road where the loaded trucks are, signs that are leaning sideways. Those all signs are, they're not all together maintaining our areas. And then you start worrying about other things, you start asking questions. So I think that's very important that we maintain the vision of when you're coming to have a look at something here that you're feeling good about. When I came here, I didn't notice it before, the fences and outside the condos there. And those kind of things attract people from mine. And that's what we're really on about, is try and get investments in here, people, and create a vision. So that's really fun. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Phil.
My name is Steve Oak, and I have a comment and also a question that I will roll all up in one. came here in 1996 because I saw a videotape the contractor had given me to watch on El Dorado Ranch. And I came down and it showed the lifestyle here. And my salesman, who's no longer a salesman here, Jordan Jackson, he wasn't selling me sand, he was selling me a lifestyle that I didn't have in the United States. And so we invested into a piece of dirt, sand, out in the solar section. And after 25 years, we finished construction last year. We built it out of pocket and on vacation time. And back early on, when I paid for my lot, I was told that El Dorado Ranch would pick up my garbage at the end of the street at Saltito, and that I could use the palapa. And there was a certain amount of dues per year for that. So over the course of the 26 years, that dues that I pay the HOA now, it hasn't even gone up 100%. And now look at all the things that I have that I didn't have then. I have swimming pools, hot tubs, tennis courts, bocce ball, horseshoes, an amazing activities department here. And those guys have worked their way to activities guys. But back then, they used to have a caravan that would come down every Tuesday with RVers from the United States because of, there's a bandito behind every bush mentality in the United States. So they would bring down a caravan and they would stay down at the wonderful RV park we had here. And it was just fabulous. And so part of that, they would take a 90-minute tour and they would buy lots. And they would build, and that's probably where most of the solar people came from today, from those lots in that caravan. So on the marketing aspect of it, I was thinking maybe we could do something like that again. And at one time, El Dorado was going to build another nicer RV park, as in what Pete's Camp's doing now, and they're getting our business. That's the way I look at it. So the question would be, are we ever going to get another nice RV park, a 4 or 5-star RV park? Because that will sell lots. And then it was all word of mouth how I got it. So anyway, I just love being here. Like I say, 26 years, and I'm still here. So I'm like old dirty penny, you can't get rid of me. Thanks a lot, let me share.
So thanks, Steve. Actually, we do have plans to build at least one RV park. I don't